Om Shanti, good evening. Welcome to Interview with Raj Yogi, looking at the essentials, the basics of Raj Yoga. And tonight the focus is part one of looking at purity. As always, beginning with a reflection. As I'm sitting here, I ask myself, how am I sitting here? Am I sitting here in an ordinary way? Am I sitting here with attention and care? Am I sitting here with no heaviness in mind, completely in the moment, effortlessly? Am I sitting here with self-respect? Am I sitting here with pure, that is, valuable feelings towards the self, with a sense of belief in the self? There are 24 hours in a day. During those 24 hours, I perform actions, I interact, impact other people, I make decisions, I use resources. Whilst I'm doing all of that, what is my state? What is my attitude towards myself? Am I focused more outwards than inwards? Taking stock of the quality of the relationship I have with myself. Om Shanti.
Shanti, good evening. Welcome to Raja Yoga Essentials. So, tonight's topic shared is purity. This is part one and is a very relevant reflection, but perhaps maybe for those who haven't heard much about this topic of purity, maybe we're jumping ahead, but I think since we're already having that reflection, what is this relationship between purity and value for the self? I don't know how many would think that those two are connected.
I was reflecting a bit on this topic earlier and how we have a bit of a love-hate relationship almost with purity. We love to surround ourselves with pure things. We like pure water, pure food, pure air, pure atmosphere, pure intentions even. And we feel that those are more valuable, actually. So when something has the pure label on it, then we're not surprised if it's more expensive, more valuable. So we do feel that pure is quite precious. And as I say, love to surround ourselves with it. But things seem to get a little complicated when we refer to the self. Am I pure? If other things out there are more valuable when they're pure, then perhaps that formula applies to me as well, that I will be more valuable when I am pure. And I think we actually want that state. We miss it, if you will, we long for it. I think why we have a bit of a difficult relationship with it is because we're not quite sure what to do about it, how to restore that state. Where do we begin? So instead, we go back to trying to surround ourselves with pure things in the hope that that will make us more pure or valuable, but eventually having to look at just the self. So I think we do understand deep down the relationship between pure and valuable.
The tricky part is maybe one starting to learn to intellectually see it, but not really actually feel it.
Mm. In terms of pure,
This aspect of value of the self and
mm.
pure, I was talking to a colleague today, a very lovely soul, and he was really sharing that, every time he gets angry, every time he gets upset, he knows it's himself, it's his reactions. But then he was sharing that this all feels so theoretical.
Mm.
Whenever he shares about it, he can't seem to convey it in terms of his behavior, even his internal behavior. So this interesting relationship we have with purity.
Yeah, again, I think it comes back to, I think the reason it might go into intellectual is, again, because we're not quite sure what to do with it. We know we should not operate this way with, impure intentions and hidden agendas and etc. We know ego, whatever the case, we know we should not. We're just, it sort of goes into, because I know, but what should I do? What should I do about it? So it just remains at the, I know I should not, but the bottom line is I feel this way and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. So I'm stuck. And this almost, which I find fascinating, this process of learning how to become pure again. And I say again because, even if we're around infants, for the most part, we love their purity, their innocence, and it seems very natural. And that was us. So we know it, we've been there, how to get there again, rather than it just staying in a theoretical place where I know I should be, but I'm not quite sure what to do about it.
It's interesting because many then find they just have to try harder. I just have to be better. Or I just have to start, having these positive affirmations for myself to value myself or just look happy.
Yeah, it's a very funny thing that relationship between what and how. I know what I want to happen, but the how is a little fuzzy, and I'm working with whatever how or method I have. It doesn't seem to be working, but maybe if I try harder, it will work. And it still doesn't seem to be working. So something must be wrong with me. And the idea that maybe I have the wrong method. I compare it to driving somewhere and I'm not reaching the destination. Maybe I've got the wrong directions. And it's not that I drive faster or harder. And if it's the wrong directions, I'm just going to let up lost quicker. So making sure that I have the right method. And that means that I need to have some understanding of how I work, what purity means when we're talking about a living being. So getting sure we have the right information.
Perhaps we'll touch upon the right method in a second. Now, as we mentioned, this is Raj Yoga Essential, so it's the essential aspects of Raj Yoga. And so that we don't lose the point. So, why it's actually many know or have heard that purity is the foundation of Raja Yoga. It's a really important aspect for those who study in this study. Why is that the case? Connecting what Raja Yoga is about and what purity is about.
I think this is very connected actually to the previous idea that part of why we have a difficult relationship with purity, very often souls seem to feel some sort of guilt or shame. And that guilt or shame almost suggests not really knowing what my innate or original state is. We even have the phrase original sin, that we are not actually innately pure, that anger is human nature, that greed is human, and we just are fighting these primal instincts. So there's a lot of guilt and shame and fighting connected to purity. What Raj Yoga assumes, and the reason it's the foundation, is that we're not innately bad, that we're actually innately pure, that that's our original and natural state is pure. To not have anger, we even say we are peaceful beings. So that's the very foundation of Raj Yoga, that we're quite royal beings, and we're going to engage in a process that will simply restore or re-emerge our original pure state, which is free of all of these different forces and tensions that, in truth, are having us act in ways that create strange outcomes that make us quite unhappy. So it's restoring our original state, which is royal. So Raj or royal yoga, a process, a transformative process that restores our original pure state. That is the essence of Raj Yoga, and assumes that we are originally pure.
Now, many find, I know you had mentioned about this, it becomes intellectual. It's because this relationship with purity. And some often find that, so I'm told that I'm a soul, yeah, but I still feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's sort of still part of the same issue. And what to do? What to do?
I recently heard something and I really enjoyed it. It's you know, when I go to the doctor's office with certain symptoms, it's originally at some point I started healthy. And then, due to a series of circumstances, some of which I may know, some of which I may not, I am unhealthy, which has brought me to the doctor's office. I could choose to feel bad about that, I suppose, but the reason I'm there is that I want to get back to my healthy state. I accept that I am unhealthy and I feel that I'm with someone that can help me to get back. So I'm going to listen to them. So there's an acceptance of, yes, I have lost my healthy state. It's not a bad thing. I'm here to return to my healthy state. So again, if there's that, there's just to understand the self, that what I've always enjoyed about Raj Yoga is that I'm not trying to change because there's something horribly wrong with me. I'm changing because there's something quite right with me, that this original state is quite beautiful. I need to know that arriving at this unhealthy state, it's not about shame, it's not about guilt, it's not about feeling bad or unworthy. It's actually a natural process of just going through life. And there comes a point in each of our own times when we kind of miss our original state. Even when I look at one lifetime, it starts so pure, and then yes, we go through life and we're enjoying what we're doing as we age. We're not saying, oh man. In fact, many can't wait to become an adult and all the freedoms, so we're going through it. But then there arrives a point in our old age when we say, it'd be so nice to be young and innocent again. So there's that longing emerging, and I accept where I have arrived at, not with shame or guilt, understanding It was just part and parcel of moving through time. And it's the same with anything. During the course of the day, my clothes started clean and they got dirty. And it's just the course of being active during the day. And I say, I'd like some clean clothes. So I put them in the wash. And I don't feel bad about it. I suppose, I could beat myself up saying, wow, what was I thinking? Or I could say, that's just part of going through the day. If some things get dirty, it's completely normal. Luckily, I have a process which to clean them and return them to their original state. So it's a lot of attitudes.
It sounds like a sense of objectivity, though, when you're sharing. Okay, so I just went through some muck, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because just to keep things relevant, of course, I've worked in the field of so many different types of physical ailments,
Mm-hmm.
but also with mental ailments.
Mm-hmm.
And those with mental ailments, they struggle a lot when it comes to having a diagnosis for a mental illness versus the physical illness. Not that the physical illnesses don't, but the implications of what they do on the mental level. It's quite interesting how much it has so much to do with one's thinking process and how it affects one's attitude. To me, it feels like it's very relevant to this piece because it's always, even if it's a physical ailment or mental ailment, it always has to do with some sense of value,
Mm-hmm.
that where somebody feels where they struggle, which is why this is an interesting conversation. Bless you.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think one of the first things that we saw, and it's always the case, it's always in the foundation, was this attitude switch so I could have a healthy attitude towards becoming pure rather than a guilty or shameful attitude or stigma. So we saw with the first generation of Raj Yoga students at the beginning of the organization, an inordinate amount of time was spent building up their self respect. And it was, quite frankly, a lot through soul consciousness, but building up their self respect so that they can have a healthy approach to this journey of becoming pure. I heard a very sweet story today with a client that they were sharing. I don't know how we got there. I think that she was avoiding doing the exercises. She kept talking. It's like, should we
I think I've heard
it
you
was
share the
it was
same
quite
kind of
funny
thing with instructors
actually.
too.
So anyway, she was sharing that when she was in school, one of her teachers had a brother who she wasn't quite clear in the story, but maybe schizophrenic, something undiagnosed. It wasn't really clearly diagnosed in the family, but he was obviously behaving in ways that the parents weren't quite sure. And they didn't have necessarily a good attitude
Hmm.
towards what he was presenting. So he was kind of left to his own to figure it out, to how would he adjust, accommodate himself while moving into a productive life. And it's quite interesting what happened. Whatever reason, he taught himself, I wouldn't say how to meditate, but how to have healthy conversations inside. He actually taught himself this, and it became he's now, I guess, corporate. And so what was being shared, this was an art school actually. She said that every once in a while, the teacher, this brother, would just unexpectedly show up and say, okay, we're all going to meditate now. And they'd be like, okay. And it was this interesting self-reflective process he would put them through. Like, think about all the people in your life who you feel may have, and there might be hurt feelings around, and go into that and see if you can resolve that. And, at first they'd all find it quite cheesy, but the students actually looked forward to it. And so he developed, and it always seems to be a very introverted aspect to somehow harnessing an attitude towards the self so that I can embark on a journey of transformation without feeling bad. The biggest obstacles we run into in Raj Yoga is impure attitudes towards ourselves. That we doubt ourselves, we're very critical about ourselves, we feel bad about ourselves, we lose faith in ourselves. It's always towards ourselves. Now, eventually, it starts to show up towards others. And if you're sitting there and noticing that you do have critical attitudes towards others quite a bit, the odds are that you've been doing it to yourself for a while. So, that relationship with the self, before I change anything, I have to embrace myself. I know that sounds cheesy, but I really, we have a body of knowledge that helps us to understand ourselves. But it's ultimately helping us to embrace ourselves so that we can embark on this journey, not waste time battling with ourselves, because becoming pure is the essence of happiness.
So you had mentioned about, that for the first generation students, they spent a lot of time
Mm.
focusing on self-respect, on experiencing that on the basis of considering myself to be a soul. And so obviously returning back to the essence of the session, Raja Yoga,
Mm.
it sounds like then that experience of being a soul has to feel so real.
Mm. Yeah, that's why we use the word remembering. So, um, and we distinguish between intellectual and intellect. If I'm imagining, then this is a bit more of an intellectual exercise, and it's not doesn't have much penetration. But the intellect remembers, and I am remembering. I am a soul. I'm remembering that I really am a child of God. I'm remembering these things that I had disconnected from. So we often refer to it as almost coming out of amnesia. I am remembering. So then it's quite real. When someone's coming out of amnesia, they're not making up something, they're trying to remember something that exists, that's always been there. So I am a soul. I just have disconnected from that feeling. I forgot. So I'm just giving myself time to remember. And the moment those memories are unlocked, or we say the intellect is unlocked, then it's much easier to embark on the journey.
Now, I wanted to ask this question a couple of questions back, so I didn't want to miss it. And we were talking about self-respect.
Mm.
Why not just say this is just a study of self-respect? Why even bring up this word purity?
Mm. I personally can't separate the two. One thing, though, I've appreciated about Raj Yoga, it's very precise in its definitions, and it's a complete rewriting of our dictionary. If I go out into the world and ask 100 different people to define self-respect, I will get some very interesting definitions, and the odds are most of them would be quite physical.
Mm.
Um, to have, that pure, in fact, we often use the word pure and spiritual interchangeably. To have that pure or spiritual understanding of self-respect that's not in any way connected to the body or the people or the actions, nothing but just my being as, the values of the self. To have it just connected to that is pure or spiritual self-respect.
So, because I was going to add in there, then why not positive affirmations,
Mm.
right? And for those who haven't taken the pure thinking course, and maybe those who have, there is a part in there where we discuss about the difference between pure versus positive.
Mm.
That's what I noticed from a lot of participants. They really grapple with that.
Yeah, of course. Positive is definitely appreciative, that I'm positive or appreciating the people or situations around me, which is beautiful. But it may not necessarily be pure. Positive can very often be connected to outcomes. So I'm going to stay positive that this happens, or positive that that happens, or this kind of thinking. And pure it's not in any way connected to outcomes or desires. So this difference between, is there soul consciousness or spirituality involved? to me is such a difference between pure and positive. Pure is far more focused just on the state of the self rather than what's going on out there. I want this to happen or that to happen. So we talk about the power of purity, that I'm in a certain spiritual state, state of truth. This is purity. Positive does not necessarily have to look, am I in a state of truth? Am I in a spiritual state? It is, yes, an attitude that's hoping certain things will happen, usually connected to outcomes or what I want to happen. So it's very interesting to explore the difference between the two. But purity will definitely be positive. Positive may not be pure.
You know, it's interesting when you're sharing. I was actually reminded of sharing that you had given many times before you actually came into the study.
Mm.
A friend of yours who did leave the body from
Mm.
cancer. And what came to mind was when you were sharing that when she first found out, she said, I'm going to make it, I'm going to get through
Mm.
this. How, and there's a reason why I'm bringing that up, is because I think, again, back to discerning the difference between the two.
Mm.
I remember you were sharing there was a feeling around her response in that way,
Mm.
kind of reminds me of positive
Mm.
versus pure.
Yeah, it was actually after I came into the study.
Okay.
And there were a few different people who have been around who have left the
Okay,
body
can't
due
keep
to
up.
cancer. But anyways, um, and I remember I went to visit her. It was a couple of days before she was going to. We use the phrase "lose the body" because leave the body because we believe in rebirth. And it was a couple of days before she was going to leave the body, transition. And I remember I arrived, and she had already gone through a couple of bouts of cancer and remission. So she was kind of used to this drill, but I could tell that this was the big one. And I remember I arrived, and she, in order to overcome already at least two, it might have been more bouts of cancer, she obviously had to have incredible strength of mind. And I had visited her many times over the years, and she did. She had remarkable strength of mind. We might say very positive attitude that I'm going to overcome this, and definitely. But I remember arriving this time, it's very clear where this was going. And at first, it was allowing her to yet again say, I'm going to overcome this, allowing her to express that and saying nothing actually, um, not judging or anything, just listening really. And then remember there was a period, there was actually another person there, and I could tell they were exhausted. And even though they were very close, and I was not really a close friend, someone that they knew, but not definitely, I looked at them and said, it's okay. You can go and take a break. And so they left. So we were alone. And I think the TV was on. So we looked at the TV together for a while. And all the time, it was just this sense of, for me, being in as spiritual a space as possible around that soul, which meant remembering I'm a soul, remembering the Supreme Soul, this very pure state I was trying. And pure again, we're connecting to truth, what is eternal. I think that is a hallmark of purity or becoming pure. So, really going into an eternal place where there's no fear and there's no trying to manipulate anything. It's a very powerful state. And so I remember that for a while. And then she herself suddenly said, I'm afraid. And I said, yes, I understand. I know. And then there was quiet again. And then I did something that I don't really do usually. So it shocked me. I think it was God possessed me or something. But I put out my hand to hold her hand. And just this drishti, looking into each other's eyes, and held her hand for a moment. And it was all in silence. And she said, I felt that. Now, I wouldn't call whatever, because I felt something too. I thought it was just me. And it was this incredible transfer of qualities. Whatever the connection I was having with God got transferred to her, and her innate courage, definitely, I felt that come my way. I would not call that transfer the power of positivity. I would definitely call it the power of purity. Positivity doesn't even make sense, actually. But these very pure energies, this pure energy of being connected to the Supreme Soul, to God, the eternally pure being, and that pure and of her innate quality of courage, her very, the essence of who she is as a soul. It was a beautiful transfer of very pure feelings. And I remember her, she said, yes, no, I felt that. And I left soon after, and then I was told she did leave the body 2 days later, but she did refer to that moment. And I was told that she left the body in peace. And it's funny, we had another instance. There was so many, but there was another soul who, I'll never forget this because it really touched me. I knew the soul and I knew the soul's partner. So she again was able to convey to me because he came to a drop-in class one evening at the center, and then a few days later he left the body, which surprised me because I knew he was not well. I knew he has cancer, but I didn't realize that. But that evening at the center, we did the exercise, which some of you might have done, where we sit in small circles and we have very pure vision. Again, I wouldn't call it positive vision, pure vision, where we see each other as a soul and we experience the quality of the soul and we write it on a piece of paper. And then we do this in circles, and then everyone gets this very pure vision we've had for each other. We don't see gender or anything. We only see soul, feel the soul, the qualities of the soul. And so he had all of these qualities that others had seen in him. And she shared with me the few days after when he left the body, says, that last night that he was at the center was an incredible upliftment for him. And it was, again, I wouldn't call it was the power of purity. So there's definitely a difference. We definitely love it when we experience it. Again, it's the how.
Those are beautiful examples because it makes me feel that I would maybe, I'm just assuming those who are all watching, but that you would agree. It is not positive, but it's just, you just sense it. Like sometimes it seems like it's hard to articulate the difference between positive and pure, and yet it's still so clear. And a couple of things maybe that I was thinking about was that you don't manipulate it. And it's not about how do I make things better, how do I make things better, but it's a sense of realness, which again, and it's an interesting conversation because it feels like many in the study of Raja Yoga are just trying to grapple with what am I experiencing for real and what am I just intellectualizing.
Yeah, some of the words, and it's very helpful to be clear on it because then it won't slip into, we're pretty clear on positive, but for some reason pure throws us a loop. And some of the words that are connected to purity, we've already mentioned spirituality, truth. So authenticity and beauty are also connected to purity. Again, would I connect those words to positivity? But the most obvious example that I think makes it all clear, we always use this example. You go into the store, you're going to buy some orange juice, you look at the label, it does not say 100% positive orange juice. It's like, what is it really? Positive orange juice? Like, has a really great attitude? What is that? It says,
He's trying to be
I'm going to be orange.
really.
I need pineapple juice, but I am going to be orange juice when I grow up. So it's 100% pure orange juice. We know exactly what it means. And the words, yes, pure will have a positive effect on me. Absolutely. If I drink 100% pure orange juice, it will have a very positive or healthy effect on me. Yes, positive, pure is definitely positive as well. But pure, it's pretty clear. There's nothing foreign mixed into it. So we're back to what is the intrinsic state of? We'll say, well, we did some blood work and we found this. I'm like, I don't feel bad. I feel, oh, thank goodness. Now I know what's wrong and I know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I regret we're running out of time,
Mm,
but some things that we will discuss about next week is God's part in
mm,
this, in relation to soul consciousness, this aspect of authenticity. So
mm.
you're welcome to join us again next week, and perhaps we'll just move into a little reflection.
Thank you, Nora. I go inside to spend time completely with myself. The first thing I'm surprised to notice is how little time I actually spend with myself. My attention is so often out there in the world of action, interaction, the world of outcomes and status. Why? What am I trying to attain? And if I become quiet, the answer might emerge. So much of my time and energy in the day is trying to attain a sense of self value, whether it's through actions, through people, through possessions, through status, constantly trying to attain a sense of self value. Is it possible to have an internally generated sense of self value? So I no longer beg for it out there in the world, rather than taking value from outside. I have value inside to share with the world, to make the world more valuable. This is such a pure state where I have so much value within the self, independent of anything physical or external, unconditional. To imagine that state, that very pure state. This is the highest form of benefit for the self, an expression of pure love for the self. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Pure love is actually a really big phrase in the sense that what is my idea of it and what is real. So thank you. It was a really intriguing session. So feel free to join us next week. But I'm going to pass it over to Judy right now to share about upcoming sessions, including the upcoming Raja Yoga experience too. Thank you.
I might need help. Prompting from the side. So maybe we'll take up pure love in another interview on Tuesday. But we do have inner fitness, as always, on Saturday. 2 to 3 p.m., and that's on our Zoom platform. So, again, you'll have to go to the website and you get the link to join. And that takes a classic phrase that we hear in physical fitness and unpack that phrase in a way it may apply to spirituality. So I believe the focus this Saturday is alignment. Alignment. Tuesday evenings also interview with a Raj Yogi, but more on a specific theme that is a result of studying Raj Yoga. So perhaps we can take up pure love or just love in general. Um, and then we do have a Raj Yoga experiments experience. Oh, the Raj Yoga experience. Yes. This is our new approach to the Foundations course. It's 4 sessions over 2 weekends, and those dates are October 17th, 18th, and 24th and 25th from 12 to 1 ish, maybe 1:15. That will be on Zoom as well. So again, please visit our website to get the information and to register. Even though it's online, we do like souls to register, so we know who will be attending. And we will also have our meditation hour on October 18th, which is one of my favorites, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. All meditation. This idea again of generating very, very pure experiences within the self that will definitely have a ripple effect in terms of benefiting the world. And meditation continues Tuesdays and Thursdays evenings, 6:45 to 7:30, and usually on Sundays as well, 6:30 to 7:30. And please visit our website for all the details. And big thank you for joining this session. We always welcome your questions. So always feel free to email us and we'll see if we can explore those together in these sessions. Om Shanti.